Greetings, fellow seekers of slumber. Tonight we'll unravel the unsettling history and chilling atmosphere of the most horrifying places in Middle-earth, from the corpse-lit bogs of the Dead Marshes to the industrial hellscape of Gorgoroth. A journey through places that don't just threaten your life, but your sanity and your very soul. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from, and whether the sun has set for you. It's always wonderful to see where our fellow dreamers reside. Picture this. The air is thick, heavy. Every inhalation coats your tongue with the taste of rot and ancient silt. This is the Dead Marshes. Your first lesson here is about the ground beneath your feet. It is not solid. It is a treacherous, shifting quilt of mud, punctuated by islands of greasy turf that offer the illusion of stability. You must follow the path. A narrow, winding trail of compacted soil and half-submerged stones, marked by flickering lights. These are not friendly will-o'-the-wisps. They are the candles of the dead, pale, cold flames that dance over the surface of the pools, illuminating what lies beneath. And what lies beneath is a historical archive of slaughter. Faces stare up at you through the murk. The serene, ageless features of elves, the grim, faced determination of men, the twisted visages of orcs. They are the casualties of the Battle of Dagorlad, fought millennia ago, preserved in this stinking water like specimens in a jar. They seem to float just below the surface, forever caught in their final moment of agony. The true horror of the marshes is not that they are a graveyard. The horror is that they are a trap pretending to be a graveyard. The lights, the candles of corpses, are the lure. They seem to beckon, to offer a different path. A shortcut, your guide. A creature ruined by obsession hisses a warning. Don't follow the lights. This is not folklore. It is a fundamental law of physics in this place. The lights are a psychic echo, the lingering trace of life in a place defined by death. To be drawn to them is to be drawn into the memory of the battle itself. Step off the path, and the mud will claim you. You will join the silent, staring audience under the water, another ghost in the collection. Let's just say this is the world's most effective form of historical reenactment, and participation is both mandatory and permanent. This is not a haunting. It is a contagion of memory. You survive by focusing on the mundane misery, the cold water that has permanently soaked through your boots, the H in your back, the singular, obsessive focus on the heels of the person in front of you. You ignore the whispers that seem to ride the fog, the faces that sometimes seem to turn and follow your progress. You are not a hero here. You are just another piece of organic matter, trying desperately not to become part of the local scenery. The lasting legacy of the Dead Marshes is not just as a geographical barrier, but as a perpetual monument to the Second Age's apocalyptic violence. The swamp swallowed an entire battlefield, and in doing so, it became a living testament to the fact that some wounds on the world never heal. It serves as a grim warning that history is not a passive collection of stories. It is an active, malevolent force that can physically reach out from the past and drag you down. The marshes are a scar that refuses to fade, forever reminding any who cross it that victory in a war against absolute evil is paid for with poisoned land and haunted water. You have survived the swamp of historical trauma. Congratulations. The waterlogged chill, however, is now replaced by a cold that feels far older, a cold that emanates from stone. You stand before the Dwimorberg, the haunted mountain, and a dark, crack-like entrance that seems to swallow the light. Welcome to the paths of the dead. From the open, festering wound of the marshes, we descend into the clenched, stone fist of a curse. The air here does not move. It is stale, thin, and carries the dry, mineral scent of ancient dust and profound regret. The silence is the first violation. It is not an absence of sound. It is a presence. A heavy, suppressive blanket of quiet so total that the beat of your own heart feels like a vulgar intrusion. This is not a natural cave system. It was carved by the men of the mountains, a people who swore a binding oath to Isildur at the dawn of Gondor's age, promising to fight against Sauron. When the war came, they broke that oath, hiding in their mountain halls. Isildur, standing upon the stone where the oath was sworn, cursed them. They would find no rest, no passage from the world, until their vow was finally fulfilled. The figures that now begin to coalesce in the oppressive dark are not ghosts in the way you understand them. They are an army of spectral defaulters, trapped in a state of perpetual limbo by the force of their own broken promise. They do not threaten you with violence. They threaten you with the crushing weight of their eternal shame. The journey through the paths is a psychological ordeal, not a physical one. An icy wind, carrying faint, whispering voices, gusts through the passage. It is the sound of 3,000 years of self-recrimination. The dead crowd around you, their spectral forms intangible, their eyes filled with a despair so complete it feels like a physical force. You are walking through the physical manifestation of a failed contract. Picture an entire nation of tax evaders, trapped in a subterranean audit office for millennia, with the original auditor's heir walking in to check the books. Let's just say their desperation to finally settle their account is palpable. This isn't a march through a tunnel. It's an immersive lesson in the terrifying, binding power of oaths in a world where words have weight and promises can become prisons. You are a footnote in their quest for release, an auditor they have been waiting for. You emerge, gasping, into the living air of the Blackroot Vale, the spectral host pouring out behind you. Finally ready to fulfill their contract, you have survived the suffocating pressure of history's greatest disappointment. But do not get comfortable. We are trading the psychologically crushing for the biologically obscene. The horror of a broken oath is about to be replaced by the much simpler, much more visceral horror of being eaten. There are no warnings here, no signs. The transition is abrupt. One moment you are in a rocky pass. The next you are plunged into a darkness so absolute it feels like a physical substance. It presses against your eyeballs. It smothers all light. Then comes the smell. It is a complex, layered atrocity, the sweet, cloying stench of decay, the acidic tang of venom, and the ancient, musty odor of undisturbed filth. This is Terech Ungol. This is Shelob's lair. The silence of the paths of the dead was profound, but this is different. It is a hungry silence, a patient silence. It is broken only by a faint, wet, clicking noise from the darkness ahead, and the unsettling feeling of thick, sticky strands of web brushing against your face and hands. They are strong as wire, and they are everywhere. Let's be clear. Shelob is not one of Sauron's minions. She is a relic from an older, darker world. A direct descendant of the primordial horror Ungoliant who once drained the light from the two trees of Valinor. She is not an animal. She is a minor deity of gluttony. Her evil is not born of ambition, malice, or ideology. It is the pure, cosmic evil of unending, insatiable appetite. She has resided here for ages, a festering pocket of primordial darkness. Sauron knows of her, finds her a useful, if unofficial, gatekeeper. He calls her his cat. A deeply unsettling pet policy, to be sure. This lair is not her home, it is an extension of her digestive system, and you have just voluntarily walked into it. The journey is a crawl through winding, web-choked tunnels. The floor is a litter of bones, some centuries old, cracked and sucked dry. The air is thick with the reek of her refuse. This is not a creature you fight. It is an environmental hazard you attempt to survive. This is not some common giant spider to be dispatched with a sword. Shelob is less a monster and more a freelance entity of consumption who has chosen this particular cave system as her base of operations. The whole place is the ultimate hostile work environment. The air quality is a toxic catastrophe. The interior design is a monotonous study in black. And your only potential colleague is an ancient horror whose primary management style involves paralytic venom and cocooning. The Phial of Galadriel, should you possess such a thing, offers a desperate hope. But when its light flares, it reveals a greater horror. You see the sheer scale of the filth, the tunnels slick with slime, the heaps of discarded husks, and then you see her, a vast, bloated shape of blackness, her multiple eyes gleaming with a thoughtless, ancient malice. The light causes her pain, but it is the pain of an annoyance, not a true threat. It is the equivalent of shining a flashlight in the face of a hurricane. You are an insignificant morsel that has inconveniently brought its own seasoning. The legacy of Shelob's lair is a lesson in the ecology of evil. It proves that not all darkness serves the Dark Lord. The world is filled with ancient, independent horrors that predate the current political landscape and will likely outlast it. Shelob is a force of nature, a living fossil from a more chaotic era. Her lair is a reminder that even in a world on the brink of a final, apocalyptic war between good and evil, there are pockets of reality that operate on a much simpler, more brutal principle: eat or be eaten. She is the ultimate horror of a universe that is not merely hostile, but profoundly, personally hungry. You survive the lair of a creature that embodies pure, biological hunger. You are covered in filth, your nerves are shredded, and the memory of that ancient, clicking malice will never quite leave you. But you are through. Congratulations. Now you get to experience civilization, Mordor style. Welcome to the Watchtower of Cirith Ungol, a place that proves that the only thing more horrifying than a single, ancient monster is a large group of organized ones. You have escaped the primordial horror, only to stumble into the bureaucratic kind. The tower itself is a monument to function over form. It is a grim, angular fortress of black stone, originally built by the men of Gondor to keep watch over this pass. The irony is palpable. A bastion of vigilance, now repurposed into a high-security containment facility. Its purpose is no longer to keep evil out, but to keep Sauron's countless slaves and prisoners in. The air here is a cocktail of stale air, rusting metal, unwashed orc, and the thick, unmistakable stench of festering resentment. The soundscape is a cacophony of guttural shouts in the black speech, the clang of shoddy iron, and the sharp crack of a captain's whip. This is not the silent, ancient dread of the paths or the hungry stillness of the lair. This is the loud, obnoxious, and deeply unstable horror of a military outpost on the brink of a riot. The inhabitants are the true terror. The garrison of Cirith Ungol is not a monolithic legion of evil. It is a forced cohabitation of rival orc factions from Minas Morgul and Barad-dûr, and they despise each other with a profound racial animosity. Think of it as a border control station jointly run by two street gangs who have been at war for generations. Their alliance is one of convenience, enforced by a distant, terrifying upper management. Their natural state is a simmering stew of paranoia, hatred, and violent jealousy. Their command structure is less a chain of command and more a continuous, bloody argument over who has authority over whom. This is the key to its unique brand of horror. It's the sheer, homicidal incompetence. When a prisoner of immense value is brought in, the ensuing conflict is not a calculated interrogation, but an immediate, chaotic brawl over the spoils. The dispute over a single piece of treasure, the mithril coat, escalates into a full-scale massacre. Let's just say this is what happens when your entire society's HR policy is based on the principle of survival of the most murderously ambitious. It is a system designed to self-destruct. You are not a prisoner in a well-oiled machine of war. You are a piece of contraband dropped into the middle of a prison riot. Your survival depends not on strength or cunning, but on the certainty that your captors will inevitably turn on each other. The Tower of Cirith Ungol is a perfect microcosm of Mordor's imperial philosophy. It is a system that runs on fear and hatred, not loyalty. Sauron pits his servants against one another, ensuring that their ambitions and resentments are directed laterally, never upwards. The Tower's history, from a symbol of Gondorian vigilance to a decrepit and dysfunctional orc barracks, is the history of the world in decline. It is a monument to the idea that even the strongest walls will fall, not to a dramatic siege, but to simple, thankless decay, eventually becoming a home for the very things they were built to keep out. You slipped through a fortress that cannibalized itself, the orcs' own greed and paranoia providing the perfect cover. But that small mercy is over. You now descend from the high pass into a valley where the horror is not contained within walls, but emanates from the very soil. Welcome to the Morgul Vale. The air grows cold, but it is not a natural chill. It is a dead, stagnant cold that seems to radiate upwards from the ground, draining the warmth from your body and the courage from your heart. This is a deliberate and total perversion of nature. The grass by the roadside is a sickly, luminous grey. The flowers, growing in pale, unnatural clusters, are grotesque parodies of life. They are white and grey, and they give off a faint, corpse-like phosphorescence, turning their heads to watch you as you pass. The silence here is profound, broken only by the whisper of poisonous vapors rising from the river Morgulduin, a stream of black water that flows without a sound. Everything here is designed to unnerve, to communicate a single, chilling message: this land is sick, this land is damned, and you are trespassing in a place where life itself has been corrupted. Then you see it. Across a white bridge stands the city, Minas Morgul. It was once Minas Ithil, the Tower of the Rising Moon, a place of Gondorian beauty and strength. Now it is a sepulchre. The city radiates a ghostly light, a luminous sickness that pulses slowly, like a vast, diseased heart. The gate is a yawning mouth, topped with a skull-like head. But the true weapon of this city is not its garrison. It is the silence, a specific kind of silence. A silent shriek. It is a psychic pressure, a high-frequency broadcast of pure dread that bores into your will, seeking out every doubt and every fear. The light of the city does not illuminate. It only reveals the shapes of horror. This is not just an evil fortress. It is an active instrument of terror. It is the capital of the Nazgul, the 9 ringwraiths, and the entire structure is a monument to their master's power to not just destroy, but to defile. They took a thing of beauty and twisted it into its absolute antithesis. Let's just say this is what happens when a city's planning committee is composed entirely of ancient, spectral kings enslaved to a dark lord. Urban renewal takes a very different turn. Forget propaganda leaflets or demoralizing speeches. Minas Morgul attacks you passively. Its primary export is a palpable, soul-crushing despair broadcast on a frequency only your spirit can hear. It is brutally efficient. It saves on siege engines. For over 1,000 years, Minas Morgul stood as the ultimate symbol of inverted hope. It was the source of plagues, the staging ground for the army that would break Osgiliath, and a constant, terrifying presence that prevented the lands of Ithilien from ever knowing peace. Its existence was a permanent psychic wound on Gondor, a constant reminder that what was once beautiful could be made foul, that even the moon's tower could be possessed by darkness. You have passed the silent sentinel. Your will is in tatters, scoured by the psychic shriek of Minas Morgul, but you are through the pass. The necromantic horror is behind you. Now you enter the furnace. Welcome to the plateau of Gorgoroth, the industrial heartland of Mordor. The air itself is an assault. It is a thick, hot, choking blanket of smoke, soot, and sulphurous fumes. Every breath is a gasp that scrapes the lungs and tastes of burnt metal. The sky is gone, hidden by a permanent, bruised ceiling of smog, illuminated not by a sun or stars, but by the malevolent red glow of 1,000 forge fires and the sleepless, vertical slit of the great eye. Watching from the distant tower of J.R.R, the ground beneath your feet is not soil. It is a cracked, sterile pavement of slag ash and sharp, volcanic rock. This is not a natural wasteland. It is a landscape that has been systematically murdered and repurposed. This entire plateau is a single, continent-sized factory floor. The sounds are a constant, rhythmic industrial thunder. The deep, percussive clang of unseen hammers, the roar of immense bellows, the grinding of rock in vast quarries, and, carried on the foul air, the faint, desperate cries of slaves. This is the engine room of Sauron's war. Here, his legions are armed, his beasts are bred, and the logistics of his conquest are hammered into reality through unending, brutal labor. The horror of Gorgoroth is not ancient or spectral. It is a uniquely modern, systematic horror. It is the horror of total, soulless industrialization. Let's just say this is the ultimate Superfund site. Welcome to Mordor's primary economic zone, a triumph of logistical engineering where the only resource that matters is output, and the only byproduct is misery. The entire region operates under the unwavering gaze of the universe's most demanding and literally omnipresent CEO. Employee morale is low. The work is hard. The hours are eternal, and the only retirement plan is to be thrown on a slag heap. This is evil expressed not as chaotic rage, but as cold, grinding, bureaucratic efficiency. This is the physical manifestation of Sauron's mind. A place of fire, iron, and relentless will, completely devoid of any living, growing thing. He did not merely conquer this land, he consumed it, turning its geological bones into the raw material for his ambition. Gorgoroth is the lasting proof that Sauron's evil is not simply about destruction. It is about a horrifying form of creation. It is the methodical, calculated transformation of the living world into a dead machine, a process fueled by the suffering of countless slaves, all to serve a single, obsessive purpose. The plateau is a testament to a philosophy that views life itself as an inefficiency to be corrected. You have crossed the dead plains of the factory floor. You have witnessed the grinding, industrial engine of Sauron's war machine. Now you approach the corporate headquarters. The rhythmic, artificial clang of hammers fades, replaced by a much older, deeper sound, the guttural, planetary rumble of a volcano. The ground trembles beneath your feet. The air, already fall, becomes a searing, shimmering blast of heat. Welcome to Orodruin, Mount Doom. You are not just approaching a mountain, you are approaching the furnace that has powered this entire enterprise of evil for an age. Your destination is a black door in the mountain's side, an entrance into the Samath Nor, the chambers of fire. The moment you step inside, the heat is a physical blow, a crushing weight that steals the air from your lungs. The chamber is vast, a dark cavern lit by a terrifying, swimming red light that pulses from a chasm cutting across the floor. This is the crack of doom, a fissure that leads directly to the molten heart of the world. The air stinks of brimstone and melts the resolve. This is not just a place of geological power. It is a place of profound, intentional evil. This is Sauron's personal workshop, his private laboratory, his temple. He chose this place deliberately, binding his power to its primal fires, making it an extension of his own will. It was here, in this searing heat, that he mastered the craft of the rings of power. It was here that he forged the One Ring, pouring his malice, his will, and a great part of his own native power into the molten gold. This chamber is not horrifying because it is a volcano. It is horrifying because it is a place where a being of immense power bent the very geology of the planet to serve as his personal artisan forge. Let's just say this is the Dark Lord's executive suit, complete with a spectacular, if hazardous, view of a literal abyss of fire. It violates every conceivable workplace safety regulation. The ambient temperature is fatal, the ventilation is non-existent, and the central design feature is a chasm of liquid rock. This is the ultimate crucible, the place where the fate of the world was both sealed and ultimately decided. It's the final, critical meeting room where the entire project of the Ring's domination began, and where it must be concluded. Standing on the precipice is the ultimate performance review, and the consequences of failure are significant. The legacy of Mount Doom is the most extreme example of how power can be bound to place. Sauron did not merely use the volcano, he imbued it with his essence. Its fires were his power. Its final, cataclysmic eruption upon the Ring's destruction is not a coincidence. It is the mountain itself dying, a violent geological exorcism of the spirit that had claimed it for millennia. For thousands of years, Orodruin was the heart of Mordor, the source of its fire, and the anchor of its darkness, its self. Destruction is the landscape being violently scoured clean, an act of purification so immense it reshapes the map of the world. You have stood in the crucible of power, the volcanic heart of Sauron's empire, and witnessed its annihilation. But the Dark Lord's reach was long, and his projects were many. Long before he returned to Mordor and openly declared his war, he established a quieter, more insidious foothold in the world. A beta test for his philosophy of corruption, we leave the industrial hell of Mordor and journey now to a place of rot, shadow, and secrecy. Welcome to Dol Guldur, the Hill of Sorcery. The fortress rises from a rocky outcrop in the southern part of Mirkwood, a forest whose very name is a warning. The woods here are no longer a place of life. They are unnaturally silent and dark, the canopy so thick it chokes the light. The air is humid, stagnant, and smells of wet decay, spider silk, and something else, something subtly foul, like a sickness in the earth itself. The fortress is a grim, damp pile of dark stone, clinging to the hill like a tumor. It is a place of claustrophobic, biological horror. It is not just a castle. It is the heart of a disease that has infected an entire forest. For centuries, this was the secret lair of a being known only as the Necromancer. While the wise of the world debated the nature of the growing shadow, Sauron was here, quietly rebuilding his strength, experimenting with dark sorcery, and poisoning the great forest of Greenwood, twisting it into Mirkwood. He drew evil things to him, seeding the forest with the monstrous offspring of Shelob and bending the very trees to his will. This was not a fortress for armies, but a laboratory for evil. Its dungeons were places of quiet, hidden torment, where minds were broken and secrets were extracted over agonizing centuries. Let's just say this was Sauron's private research and development facility, his off-the-books startup dedicated to perfecting large-scale ecological decay and necromantic arts. For 1,000 years, it was the ultimate evil telecommuting setup, allowing him to regain his power while the world's authorities were busy with regional conflicts and political squabbles. The eventual assault by the White Council to drive him out was less a final victory and more a hostile corporate eviction. It forced the shadowy CEO to relocate, an inconvenience that was, as it turned out, a calculated part of his long-term business strategy to move back to his primary headquarters in Mordor. The legacy of Dol Guldur is a testament to the insidious, patient nature of true evil. It stands as a monument to the danger of a threat that is allowed to fester in the dark. The poisoning of Mirkwood was a masterstroke of strategy, a long-term project that created both a geographical barrier and a bastion of darkness far from his ultimate seat of power. It was a feint, a decoy that drew the eyes of the wise while the true threat reconstituted itself elsewhere. Dol Guldur is the chilling proof that the most dangerous evils are not always the ones that march with armies and banners, but the ones that grow like a cancer, silently in the shadows. You have stood on the poisoned grave of Angband, the ground zero of all the world's evil. You have felt the lingering, toxic echo of a malevolence so absolute it broke the world. But even Angband, even Morgoth himself, came from somewhere. There is one final destination on this tour, a place with no geography, no substance, and no name you can pronounce. We are going to the place where it all began. Welcome to the void. There is nothing to see, nothing to feel. This is not darkness, for darkness is an absence of light. This is an absence of absence. There is no space, no time, no sound, no silence. It is the pure, raw, horrifying state of non-existence. It is the eternal, silent, thoughtless reality that exists outside the borders of creation. To contemplate it is to feel your own consciousness begin to fray, your own sense of self dissolving like salt in water. The ultimate horror is not pain, or fear, or loss. The ultimate horror is to be rendered completely and utterly meaningless. In the cosmology of this universe, this is the outer dark. Before the world was made, Melkor, who would become Morgoth, was the only one of the celestial spirits to wander here, searching for the creative power that belonged to the Creator alone. He found nothing, and this nothingness infected him. It hollowed him out, breeding a nihilistic jealousy that would drive him to not merely rule creation, but to unmake it, to drag it all back into the silent, pointless vacuum where he first learned despair. This is where he was exiled after his final defeat, not to a prison of fire, but to a punishment of total metaphysical erasure. This is the final destination on the itinerary of evil. Let's just say this isn't damnation in a fiery pit. This is having your very existence subscription permanently cancelled. It is the cosmic equivalent of being written out of the story, deleted from the source code with no possibility of recovery. It is the final, non-negotiable consequence for an evil that sought to annihilate all things. It is not a punishment to be endured, but a state of non-being that is absolute. There is no suffering here, because there is no Hera to suffer in. The legacy of the void is the philosophical anchor for all the evil in Middle-earth. It is the answer to the question of what evil truly wants. Every blighted landscape, every corrupted creature, every act of tyranny is a faint echo of Morgoth's desire to impose the featureless, meaningless state of the void onto the vibrant, living world. From the sucking mud of the Dead Marshes to the industrial hellscape of Gorgoroth, every horror you have witnessed was just a step on the path back to this final, silent nothingness. It is the ultimate horror because it is the antithesis of story, the end of meaning, and the silent, patient enemy.